All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host today, Samantha Studebaker Carl, and I'm broadcasting from beautiful the beach. And I'm here with my good friends Jason, Lori, and Catherine. And today we're going to continue our discussion of Sacred Contacts by Caroline Myss. And we are in chapter, I should have checked that first, chapter 4? Chapter 4? Chapter 4, yes. Okay, chapter 4, page 118 at the section titled The Prostitute, Guardian of Faith. And we're talking about the different archetypes, the 4 archetypes of survival. And we are on the third one, which is the prostitute, guardian of faith. So with that, I'm going to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves. And then Catherine, you can take it with the reading.
Lori Emmons in Denver.
Hey, it's Jason in Tampa.
Good morning, it's Catherine Clement, and I'm in, those are the Rocky Mountains. I wish I was there. I'd come see you, Lori. All right, a prostitute, guardian of faith. The act of prostitution is generally associated with selling one's body for money. But to my mind, that is perhaps the least significant example of the prostitute archetype. Prostitute thrives most bountifully in subtle ways and in ordinary, everyday circumstances. It comes into play most clearly when survival is threatened. Its core issue is how much you are willing to sell of yourself, your morals, your integrity, your intellect, your word, your body, or your soul for the sake of physical security. The prostitute archetype also dramatically embodies and tests the power of faith. If you have faith, no one can buy you. You know that you can take care of yourself and also that the divine is looking out for you. Without faith, however, you will eventually meet the price you cannot turn down. The majority of prostitutes that I have met and continue to meet are men and women who are either in bad marriages or in miserable jobs. Their inability to move out of their toxic environments is totally tied to economics. Women have told me that they do not want to be middle-aged and single or lose their social status or have to support themselves, and so they stay in unhappy marriages. Men tell me this too, but not nearly as often. And both men and women say that they remain in jobs that make them miserable or sick, violate their ethics, or make them feel bad about themselves for the sake of financial security. Many people tell me how unhappy they are and that they are waiting for just the right moment in their lives to make the big break and follow their dreams. Most often, these are the people who ask again and again, but what exactly is my contract? If I only knew, I could get on with it. These people are actually hoping that I can direct them on a path that will guarantee them money and peace of mind. They want to hear that their contract will give them all the time in the world, all the money they need while doing only what they want, a cabin retreat in the woods, and last but not least, a soulmate. They also never want to age. The energies and expectations of prostitute, child, and victim all have to be addressed. All power, whether from lottery winnings or spiritual visions, will draw to you some outside opponent who will try to buy, use, or contaminate you. When Jesus was met by Satan as he prayed and fasted in the desert, Satan offered to give him the entire physical world in exchange for the power Jesus now had within him. Likewise, every time you take one step on your path of personal empowerment, you will meet someone who will want to buy a piece of your soul to render you less powerful and themselves more powerful. A shadow characteristic of the human psyche in general is that we want to find the shortcuts in life, including shortcuts to our own empowerment. If we spot someone whose power appears as if it could be bought or shared, we will be attracted to it. A perfect example is the game of name wealth. I am a friend of Mr. or Mrs. Famous. The diluted energy that comes down this path of who's who is for many valuable enough for them to remain in a relationship long past the time the friendship has grown cold. Another expression, the prostitute archetype. Confronting the prostitute within you transforms this archetype into your guardian. It will watch over your relationship to faith. Think of the prostitute as the ally who puts you on alert every time you contemplate shifting your faith from the divine to the physical. Anytime you are in a crisis of faith, try to become mindful of your thoughts and fears. Name exactly what you are afraid of, especially those fears that try to talk you into compromising yourself in any way. The prostitute appears when you begin to believe that you could order your life if you just had the money to control the world around you and to buy just a bit of everyone in it. It appears when you stay in a relationship that is not good for you just because you don't want to be alone. It appears when you're asked to do something unethical or illegal for the good of the company. People who are meant to bring out the prostitute in you represent your most painful relationships, because prostitute interactions make us confront our fears of survival. They are often terrifying and humiliating. A woman named Belinda told me that once she became conscious of the fact that she had a prostitute archetype, she saw it everywhere. I am one of those millions of people who thought of a prostitute as someone selling sex. Never did I think that I could apply that title to myself. But I'm noticing that even when asked an opinion at lunch about anything from someone's new shoes to a different office policy, I run it by my "what's this going to cost me" screen. If I think an opinion is going to cost me in terms of popularity or office politics, I pass. I often say things that earn me points, even when I don't believe a word of them. After I told one executive that I thought his ideas were brilliant, I was consumed by an overwhelming urge to wash my mouth out with soap. But he has the kind of power that can make many things happen in my life. I guess what I'm saying here is that I'm still a practicing prostitute, but I've come a distance because at least I'm honest about it. I fully admit that I don't have enough faith, my integrity before my mortgage, and my spiritual direction before my promotions in the physical world. Although I've been talking about figurative, symbolic prostitution, I have also met working prostitutes in my seminar. Ronnie had developed AIDS as a result of his work as a prostitute. And during a private conversation with me and his brother, he described all the healing methods he was using to bring about a change in his condition, except for one thing. He was unable to stop working in the sex industry. This is the world I know, and I have no idea how I would support myself if I stopped going to the bars, he said. I realize that this is not helping me heal, but I don't think I have a choice. I asked Ronnie if he informed his clients that he had the illness, and after first saying that he did, he finally admitted that he didn't always. If the word got out, and it would, he said, I would not be able to work. Asked why he started in this profession in the first place, Ronnie replied, I wanted to get into acting and nothing opened up, so I had to do something. And sex is no big deal to me. Hell, I was sleeping around anyway, so why not get paid for it? Besides, it was instant money and I was on my own time. Sadly, Ronnie's brother was also a prostitute who had AIDS. Together, they felt that they needed to save a lot of money to provide the type of care they needed to heal this illness, or at least delay its progress. But as I listened to them, I realized that they were actually describing the kind of care they would need as they were dying. I got the impression that their prostitute archetypes were like Siamese twins, and that the collective force of their energies, combined with the loyalty they felt for each other, demanded that they both quit the street because it was impossible for one to go it alone. Both Ronnie and his brother passed away in the autumn of 1991. The prostitute archetype can act as a guardian that awakens you to situations in which you must decide to take up your bed and walk. Once you get away from a circumstance that costs you too much, money, energy, dignity, or time, lasting transformation is possible. June worked as a high-powered executive secretary for the president of a major multinational corporation. She was extremely good at her job and had a vibrant, gracious personality, which her boss, Dorian, learned to use to his advantage. A few months into the job, Dorian invited her to join a group of executives at a cocktail party celebrating their new client. He noticed how well she mingled and how quickly she could put people at ease. Jean was asked to attend more and more social events and was asked to explain to valued employees or clients why the company needed to make certain decisions. She became, in her language, a secret weapon that got launched in whatever direction was necessary for the company to get what it wanted. One day, another secretary approached June and asked her what it was like to attend all those social functions. I told her it was nice, June told me, but then she asked me if I was expected to do anything at these functions. Like what? I asked her. She gave me that, you know what I mean, look, and in that instant, I realized that I was being used by these men for their financial gain. That was the first and last time I would ever be made to feel like a prostitute. The next day, June exploded into her boss's office and resigned. And I didn't just resign, she said. I let him know what a pimp he was, and I kept the door open so that everyone in the office could hear what I had to say to this guy. Nonetheless, June was grateful for her experience at this firm. I learned how easily I could be used, she said. What I had thought was being supportive and social had totally different implications. My boss had an agenda that I didn't see. Now I think very carefully about what I agree to do for someone, and I remind myself that I can say no as well as yes. Do you want to stop and talk since you have to leave early? Okay.
It's so interesting. I sort of feel like they need to change the name of the archetype because it's to like some, your guardian or your, values or whatever, I mean, hadn't thought of that side.
Just to make you feel better about yourself.
No, so I feel better about you, Lori, because
I know.
that's all. No, just because I think that it just kind of can turn people off, like what they said in the book. People have an idea of a word and what it means, and they can't see past that to any depth of understanding, and that keeps people kind of closed-minded. That's all.
Absolutely does. I was not making implication toward you directly
I know.
because I know that when you look at it that way, it's like, how many
Wait a
times have
second.
I sold myself for something I didn't really want?
Yeah, I think the economic stability aspect of it is huge. And I think that yeah, we kind of grow up with this, I don't know, attitude placed upon ourselves that says, that work, we got to have a job in order to pay the bills, right? And the whole thing with the bills is they accumulate based on what lifestyle you think you should lead. And that, of course, is fed by this whole idea of keeping up with the Joneses, I mean, there's all these different layers to all of that. And then, if you don't know what you want out of life, or you don't know what you want to do, then you're just taking any random job just to pay the bills. And then you kind of get sucked into whatever that career path is, or, you bounce from place to place to place and nothing you ever want to do. And then all in the name of just paying the bills. And, I have experienced that a lot throughout my life, of that just feeling of, yeah, I wish that I could just do something different so that the bills are covered, so I don't have to do what I'm doing, whatever it is at
Right.
any given moment. For 17 years I was in the pet industry and grooming dogs, and as much as I got some enjoyment out of the animals, a lot of it was just draining so much of my patience every day that I had nothing for my family. And that made my family life unpleasant. And then my husband, you know, he's thinking that going and doing the trucking is going to be the thing that pays the bills, that supports the family, because, you know, he's the man and has to do these things. He's got to go out and bring home the bacon, right? But then that industry is a horror industry. I mean, it's just awful. And it's when he was doing the over the road thing, now it's, I don't know, it is what it is. It's better than what we were doing back then. But he, you know, he's going out, he's wasting all of his good life energy, spending it or being, you know, prostituting himself to the trucking industry. And then he's coming home and he's miserable, and then we're miserable together. And it's just this, there's so much of our lives I can think through where everything has been a compromise in order to just pay the freaking bills, you know, and it's just so frustrating because I this whole paragraph here where she's just like, many people tell me how unhappy they are and how they're just waiting for the right moment in their life to make the big break and follow their dreams. And you know, but what exactly is my contract? And then they want to hear that their contract is going to give them all the time in the world, all the money they need, all the, you know, to be able to be in a retreat in a cabin out in the woods doing nothing, you know, plus their
Where is
soulmate.
that world?
Yeah, you know, I mean,
I
it
want
doesn't
to go
exist.
there.
You know, and back, well, a number of years ago, this was a big moment, kind of a crossroads moment back when we were in Westfield, and Chris was working like a dog. I mean, they were working him 80 hours a week and wearing him out. And I was trying to build like an online business at the time. And we were stressed out, and it was just crazy time then. And I'm like, I am over this. I do not want to have all these responsibilities on my head. I don't want the bills. I don't need the stuff. I don't, I'm tired of this. Let's just stop, you know? And that was when we went and we got rid of everything and we moved into the camper. And for those years, I had a lot more peace. It was so much more peace. I felt like I was living my perfect dream or whatever. But we still had, you know, we still had some bills. And even though that lifestyle worked for a while, my husband was bored. He didn't have anything he wanted to focus on, and the jobs that he could get to you know, pay our little bills that we did have, he felt like in the same thing. He was doing shit he didn't want to do just in order to pay our tiny little bills that we had back then. And I'm like living in bliss going, this is beautiful and wonderful and la la la, but I wasn't making any money. So he was the one having to do, you know? I'm like, sure, my situation felt better, but his, it wasn't, you know? So it just, it's like on one hand, it was okay, I'm cutting loose all of this baloney that I'm selling myself for, but it wasn't a sustainable situation because one of us had to do something in order to pay the bills. I mean, it just was it frustrating, you know. So, but there was that kind of the faith side of it. She mentioned something about the faith part, and I can't remember where that was, where she was saying something to the effect of not having the faith. Oh, here it was. I fully admit I don't have enough faith to put my integrity before my mortgage and my spiritual direction before my promotions in the physical world. And I'm like, I could totally recognize that, you know, because that, you know, even when we did our kind of adventure, it was a huge leap of faith to just stop doing everything, change our entire lifestyle, and just have faith that it's all going to work out, uh, and that we're going to find our way in the way, you know, or find our way as we went along. So that is a huge thing because we've gotten ourselves into these, in general, everybody has gotten themselves into these lifestyle situations that require so much money to support, and then we feel trapped by it. So I mean, how do you transition from trapping yourself into a situation where you don't feel trapped anymore? And I think that's the big aspect of the prostitute situation, is feeling trapped into doing something you don't want to do. So that's all I have to say for today, guys. And I've got to jump off because I got to go do this thing, but I love you all. I'll
Love
be
you too.
listening to the recording
Good
later
one.
so I can
You
hear
too.
your thoughts too.
Have a good day.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, because you bring up a great point, and it touches on like the book when earlier in the when they mentioned the people wanting a perfect contract, and everyone wanting something else, of course, something different, and that is like I think they mentioned something about the devil tempting us and or evil tempting us or whatever that is that wants to, divert us from I don't know, what is it? It wants to divert us from happiness or something or from what we really want, or it wants to or sometimes I see it as it wants, maybe it's benign really and wants to test how much we want the thing that we want and on what conditions we want it, you know, 'cause we can have what we want, but we can have it, the easy way, or we could have it the hard way. The easy way being um, where we um, sacrifice some of our values, maybe, or the harder way where we don't sacrifice our values, but we have to just work harder, some just put some sweat equity into it, if you will. Um, but going further with that idea, because it mentioned, I just found it interesting that it talked about how as soon as you get into your path towards what you want, you'll find some shadowy figure or opportunity or offer or something that will get in your path and can just derail you, or I mean, it's supposedly the opportunity you're looking for to get to that perfect contract that you want, but it's disguised somehow. And now this archetype, this prostitute archetype, it's supposed to be guarding us, um, somehow. How do we learn to recognize that voice? That mentioned the one, I guess that was in the book, that the person, once they realized they had that prostitute archetype, that they started to see it everywhere. And I could see how that could be, since it does seem like there's so many distractions out there from being put in front of us that can keep us from achieving the things we want to achieve on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-by-minute basis, that you could start seeing that and start recognizing, hey, this is the warning sign I've been missing. But it may just be, how do we get in touch with that? I guess maybe I'm answering my own question as as I'm saying it. Just start looking for it more. But and maybe that goes back to the very beginning, what I said with the wording of this, calling it this, um, causing people to close their mind to the idea to begin with. Is that even something that got in the way of the person who wanted to convey this information to us, uh, to keep everyone from even looking very deeply into the idea? Not everyone, but a lot of people, just to keep them from even considering that. And so they don't even try to recognize that voice, that warning, the voice that would give us the warning signs. Because like what Samantha was saying, seemed like she wanted to transition from one thing that was kind of consuming her life, that she wanted to have more time and freedom, and but they transitioned into another thing that also was kind of doing the same thing. So it was sort of It was, disguised as the answer, as the solution. Yet, and was there the guardian, the prostitute guardian type warning there, or was it, just completely muffled by the shadowy figure?
Yeah, there seems to be too many shadowy figures influencing everyone's life, and how do you get out of it? If that's part of the contract that I signed up for, supposedly, that I signed up before I was even born. How do you alter that? It's really a constant nagging dilemma. So I'm not here with any answers.
I think it's very easy to fall into this archetype because, I mean, just think about how many people out there who are working jobs that they're completely miserable in, but it's paying the bills, And like I know, now fortunately for myself, I was able to get away from abusive relationships, but I have friends that are in abusive relationships right now. And it just infuriates me. Like, I just want to go take care of the situation myself, and I can't do that because this is their learning experience. But I see a lot of women that fall into this with abusive spouses. And the one I'm thinking of right now, it's primarily because of her age. She doesn't want to start over, and bills are tight enough with the two incomes. And if she leaves him and doesn't, and she has fear and she doesn't have enough faith that she can do life on her own at this stage. And she has health issues and things which complicate it even further. I think I don't want to say it's a good name, but I think the name is appropriate because we really do sell ourselves for things. And I think it's good that it's kind of like one sin is not worse than another. All sins are sins, So sometimes we think, oh, well, I would never be a prostitute. But then we look at our lives and we say, oh, well, I am being a prostitute right now because of this situation. When you look at it in these kind of archetypal terms. So it's good to kind of recognize that, because we always think, oh, I would never do that, or I would never do that, or I would never do that. And that's really a judgment that we're putting out, and we're not supposed to judge. So maybe that's why those situations are put in our lives, and we just have to kind of connect the dots there. I was very fortunate. It's not that I have the faith. Well, maybe it is that I have the faith I can do it on my own. I'm not exactly why. I just know there are certain situations I won't tolerate. There's been times when I've been out of a job when situations were dire and jobs were available, but they were jobs like, going and picking up cars that the people haven't been making their payments on, or stuff like that didn't sit well with me morally or ethically. Now, some people can do those jobs and have no moral or ethic problems with them at all, and that's fine. But for me, like, I have some when I hear that little voice that you mentioned, Jason, because you did answer your own question. How do I know? It's that little voice. So when I hear that little voice or that uncomfortable feeling in my stomach, and of course you have to decipher whether that's fear or excitement or anticipation or dread or what that feeling is, because a lot of feelings can feel the same way in our body. It's really our interpretation of that feeling that makes it what it is, right? Because excitement and fear has very much the same kind of feeling in our body. It makes our heart race. We kind of sweat a little, so it's how you
Yeah.
interpret that. And when I hear that little voice, if I'm listening and I pay attention, there's just jobs. I really would rather starve than do some jobs, ethically or morally. And I guess, well, I just call days like that fasting when I don't have enough money for food that is just time to fast.
It's good you're aware of the things that earth provides for nourishment and that it could survive anyway. And then you go, why do I want to survive? Get me out of here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's that. I love your explanation there. I love your explanation there because it actually kind of feeds into the idea or the shows how well, I'll just get to the point. Shows how fear can mesh into it, or our emotions can mesh into it. Where this where we what's the word for, like, we're you're doing something you don't necessarily want to do, but just because it needs to be done, because you're trying to get by, so you're doing a job you don't like to do, you're whatever it might be, honest job, good paying job, decent people, but you just hate it, but you're doing it anyway, and you're saying, you're pushing through, this is what we taught to do with, it's just life. You got to push through, you got to work hard, you got to do, and eventually your opportunity will come and whatever. And but you do have that choice to say, no, I'm not going to put my energies towards this job. I'm gonna find a different job that I like better, that is more in line with what the path I want. That's going to get me to that perfect contract that you want. However, like, if you understand what we've kind of been saying here in the past, is like, fear can manifest itself in different ways, and one of the ways it manifests is in putting things off, and not and sort of, so it can be a mixture of this, your I want to rename this to the anti-prostitute archetype. That's how I'm going to rename it to the anti-prostitute. I couldn't think of a word so that's because it's more in the archetype. I mean, if this is something that's like, everybody has all these archetypes, right? Am I understanding that correct? Everyone has all of these.
There,
We just
that's what Caroline is teaching, that we have the four basic everybody has.
Okay. So,
And
and
then
they're developed to certain degrees. We've developed them, or we're aware of them to certain degrees, where they influence our lives to certain degrees that we're may or may not be aware of. And so by learning about them and understanding what they are and what they're doing, we can recognize this in ourselves, and then we can correct that. We can, we can grow and maybe make better decisions. But this understanding so this anti-prostitute archetype is a guardian type archetype, but it would want to step in and say, you know, you are compromising your values for this. We're going to give you a bad feeling about this so that you know that, hey, this is something you need to not do if you want to stay in the path towards your perfect contract. However, we, you know, we justify our actions either through the feeling that, well, it's a necessary part of just life to do these things and push through, and we'll pull out like, oh, well, I'm being honorable and pushing, you know, this is a good job, it's just I hate it, but I'm part of the grind that everybody else is going through, so that's, you know, part of the the rat race in a good way, you know, like, you know, we're all in this together type of thing. But the same way, there's an aspect of fear in, well, I'm afraid to take to to let go of this, or to say no to this, because, you know, and to stand my grounds or to my values, even if it's maybe something superficial as, I don't like the smell of where I'm working, or I don't like working in the dirt, or, you know, or whatever it might be. I used to hate pulling weeds as a kid. That was one of the things I was like, I do not want to grow up and be a lawn person and pulling weeds all day. Of course, now I do like nature, and I do like to get out and do, you know, grow plants and stuff now as I get older. But yeah, weeds now. But, you know, if you have, everybody has these things, like, even if it's something as superficial as that. I just work in a with a company that was a great company, but I was dealing with a lot of people that would, like, oh, constantly be having to tell me their stories of their illnesses and things like that, and it just, and I couldn't quite take it anymore, so I had to step away from that. And so that perhaps was kind of the reverse type of a situation, I don't know, but there was, it I recognize a little bit of that this archetype in that, and also the fear aspect of it too. So what do you guys think?
It's hard to have faith when you have fears of these unknown things and ways that you can survive and how you're going to pay your way. And I just
Yeah, absolutely.
really get
Good point.
stuck in it's all here for a reason, and I just can't figure out why or how that we're supposed to make it work.
I liken it to, like, the aspect of getting out of your comfort zone, that when you're kind of in your comfort zone, it seems like, well, obviously, since it's comfortable, things are moving along easy and it's easy for you. And as soon as you decide to get on the path towards your perfect contract, or, you know, whatever it is you might want to be doing, really want to be doing, and you make that effort to get out of your comfort zone to do that, then it does seem like that's when you you take that first step and you stub your toe, or you you go around the corner and you don't realize the door's open, you hit that, and you drop your glass of, you know, you spill your water, or you drop it, you know, and things just start getting in the way. It's like that shadowy figure, you know, like, or you get the distractions start coming in. It's like everything was peaceful until you started to try to make you know, take action towards what you wanted. Then all of a sudden everyone's coming out of the woodwork and wanting your time, um and desperately needing you to give them your attention. and it's not, it, I don't know, and maybe it just, I've recognized that over the years, um that seems to happen. Could that be like what they're talking about? I mean, is that like an aspect of like, I don't know. I don't know if good and evil even exists, but is that an aspect of evil, or is that an aspect of testing us to how much we want what we're trying to achieve on our own conditions, on our own, you know, terms?
They mentioned in the book, they were talking about this, even when you head in the right direction and you're doing what you think you want to do, then the whatever aspect is going to try and pop up to test you in some way, right? And I'm kind of reminded of a number of different things in that kind of respect, is that, like when we were back in the camper and we were, seemingly going along smooth and everything was great, but we didn't have quite enough money to pay the minimal bills that we had. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I'm going to get a job, and it's going to be something that it has to be something that I enjoy doing, and so I ended up getting a job working in garden centers, and that was great. And it had some flexibility and time and all these kind of things. It was great in some ways, but then I would have this like little thing niggling at the back of my mind going, yeah, but you still are having to work for someone else. You're having to do this in order to pay the bills. And there was that nigglingness about that, whatever it is, in the back of my head going, yeah, you may be enjoying some aspects of this, but there's a bunch of stuff you don't enjoy about it. You don't enjoy having to go do it. You don't enjoy having to be on someone else's time clock. You don't enjoy, all these different things. And, and like even now in life, we have a lot of things going on that are great, but then on the other side of it, there's the sides of it that, I don't like. That we are obligated to. And then there's the fears of, okay, well, if I don't do this or that, then this whole thing's going to fall apart. Or if we don't keep doing this business, then where do I leave my son and daughter-in-law and their kids? What happens to them? Because I feel like, it's not just us trying to take care of us, it's us trying to make a better life for my whole family, and so we have these things where we kind of put ourselves in these places of responsibility that create a kind of feeling of obligation, that you have to do this or you have to do that, otherwise some horrible thing is going to happen. And that's, I think that's part of it.
I think we are spirit and body. And I think as spirits, as eternal spirits, who know and remember the love of God, we know that everything is provided for us, and God gives us everything that we actually need. But as humans, it's very that as humans, that causes this angst against, well, I shouldn't have to do that to get that, because we're so used to having everything that we need or want. And I think there's a big difference between the law of God and the law of man. And we have to reconcile, whose laws are we going to follow? Are we going to follow God's laws? Are we going to follow man's laws? Or are we going to try to make a mixy match of both, but I think that's where a lot of these rubs come from, is the point I'm trying to make. Because as souls, we have everything that we need. And it's challenging as a human to even imagine that, and a lot of these restraints and judgments we put on ourselves about these things. And I don't think there's anything in this world that is totally like, well, I guess if you're super, super rich, maybe you don't have to have a job, but there's still things that have to be handled that you might not like doing, like, or maybe you can just pay everybody to do all those things. I don't know, because I haven't gotten there. But
I know.
but I do think that that's kind of where the rub comes in for us, where we feel like, oh, I shouldn't have to do that, and some people, I mean, for some people, doing debt collection, that was another job that was always available. Debt collection, these call centers, whenever I was broke and needed a job, that's another job I wouldn't take. I couldn't be that person. But there are people that can be that person with it doesn't bother them at all. We all have varying, I don't want to call them morals, because I don't want to say that the other person
Boundaries.
doesn't have morals, to do that. That's not it. But what did you say, honey?
Boundaries.
Boundaries. That's a good word. That's a good word. Yeah. And I just have these boundaries against certain things, not because I think it's beneath me or I deserve better or anything like that, but it's usually something about hurting other people, like debt collection. When you're
Yeah.
just calling people and hassling the hell out of them and stuff, I couldn't do that for a living. And I couldn't go collect cars, take people's cars away from them, because, when my daughter was 16 and took off and stole our car and left my son and I stranded at high elevation in the Rocky Mountains, I know what it feels like to suddenly not have a car and be able to go get food and things that you need. So I guess we all have to learn where to draw those boundaries so that we feel some comfort within ourselves, some ease. So even if the job isn't perfect, at least it's not draining our soul every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, chipping away at a part of you that matters. So yeah, I get that. I totally get that. So I was able to work. I didn't work in the debt collection part, but I worked for a credit repair for a little while, and that wasn't so bad, because you were providing solutions. You weren't, you know, you weren't the hammer. You were the breaking things up, and you were giving them, opportunities. Anyways, you're providing a solution. So, yeah, I totally understand. That's just some great analogies and some great points. I really appreciate it. This is interesting. Now, I'm not interested in recognizing the anti-prostitute voice everywhere. Just putting that out there. But when it's really needed and is very necessary, I need to know. Need to know how to key in on that, and I need to know how to you brought up a point in your example, or maybe it was Samantha, how when it happens, then we kind of question it. We have to ask ourselves what about this, and a lot of times the person making the offer, or or company or whatever making the offer to us, wants to kind of put us on the spot and have us make a decision right there really quickly. And I think that's where kind of the real life example comes into play, is that we need to be able to recognize it, and then we need to be able to have sort of a knee-jerk reaction to say, hold on a second. So, and slow it down, slow that decision process down for ourselves, so we feel like we didn't just throw away a great opportunity, but we also didn't just jump in to an opportunity to quickly, perhaps to just show the person that we were on their side or something. So that's when I think like these lessons, this kind of education about understanding and recognizing these things, really, the how we handle it is really the most important part. How many I mean, how many times have you walked away from something and say, "Oh, I did it again." I did it, and you think, "Oh, I won't. I'll get it right next time." But maybe it's the opportunities to practice it are few and far between, and by the next time that you get that same sort of situation, you have forgotten what you learned, and so developing the skill of recognizing when we're being put in that spot to be able to say and be okay with saying, hold on, slowing down the conversation, um, to a point where you can make an educated decision, I think is so crucial, at least for me, because I really want, as I'm trying to get not just the understanding, an overall understanding of things, but I really want some um, actionable tips and guidance. And so I'm trying to, I always try to distill out of these conversations, which are so great to have. I really appreciate you all because it's really helped me quite a bit.
We appreciate you as well.
Thank you so much.
It's when those situations is they're really pushing you to do this, then you have to think, okay, is this your prostitute trying to take advantage of me and causing me more problems? Or are you really helping?
Yeah.
I'm
And
not
oh, go ahead, honey.
no. I was just gonna say I wasn't making much sense there.
No, you're making sense.
That's a good point.
I think, and we're gonna have to close it up here because I gotta run, but I think another good analogy is like the music industry. I mean, how many people dream of being a musician and all that fame and fortune, but I don't think, I mean, to me, that's a very prostitutionalized area, because the minute that they start getting any fame, or maybe to get fame, they have to maybe change the way they dress into something skimpier, or they have to, everything is focused on selling them. And you don't think of it as prostitution necessarily because of this very small definition that most of us carry of that word. But if you look at it in a big sense, that's exactly what it is. I mean,
Exactly.
exactly. And that's, I think, and this is just me saying this, you see so many young people in the music industry die of suicide, drug overdose, whatever. I think that at some point they realize that they're prostituting themselves, and they either can't deal with that or no longer want to deal with that and don't have the faith that they can do something else. And that's why you see a lot of young artists pass away. That's just, I don't know. That's truth. I'm just saying that's what I think about.
I totally get it.
Yeah,
It's what I see too.
They realize they're selling out their values.
exactly.
Is really another way of saying the prostituting.
Exactly.
So you're really selling yourself out or selling yourself short, or however you want to look at it, if you want to choose a different phrase. But that's, yeah, great example. Again, thank you so much. I know
The
you
Thank
pot
you,
calling
guys.
the kettle black.
It was a wonderful conversation as always. And for anyone out there listening, please join us on our Facebook, Mindset Mastery Collective, on our on our YouTube channel. Is it Saturday Morning Master? Is it Mindset Mastery Collective? Okay. So look for us there and jump on our Facebook. And if you want to be on this panel, we can make that happen. And I hope everybody has a wonderful week. And we'll see you all next Saturday.